Welcome to Sparta, Mississippi, your normal 1960s southern town. Officer Wood is currently enjoying a late-night snack at Ralph's Diner. On his way home, Sam stops to check out a topless lady, then finds a dead body. The dead guy is Philip Colbert, a wealthy entrepreneur and industrialist from Chicago who planned to build a new factory in the town. Meet Gillespie, your stereotypical Southern police chief. He orders Sam to find the murderer ASAP. So naturally, they go and arrest the first black guy that they find. But they didn't count on one thing.
I'm a police officer.
Oh shit! This is Virgil Tibbs, a highly decorated homicide detective from Philadelphia, whose police chief just ordered him to stay in Sparta and help out with the murder investigation. Tibbs reluctantly agrees to examine the body of Mr. Colbert. Meanwhile, the cops look for the real killer. They find and arrest a man named Harvey, but the victim's widow, Leslie Corbett, thinks the man accused is innocent. So does Mr. Tibbs. This makes the chief mad. He continues to be angry and racist and throws Mr. Tibbs in lockup. While in the jail cell, Harvey proves to Mr. Tibbs that he's innocent. When asked if he had a criminal record, Harvey admitted to getting caught with a girl named Dolores, who apparently is the teenage town floozy. He orders Mr. Tibbs out of town, but Mrs. Corbett insists that he stays on the case. Virgil Tibbs doesn't like how racist everyone in town is, so it takes a little convincing, but eventually he agrees to see the case through. Mr. Tibbs goes to work and finds several clues in the victim's car, then goes to question a man named Indigo, arch rival to the recently deceased Mr. Colbert. It doesn't go very well.
You better damn well clear out, and I mean fast!
Virgil refuses to leave until he solves the crime. He is chased down by an angry mob and attacked. Luckily, he is rescued at the last minute by Gillespie. They ask Officer Woods to retrace his steps from the night of the murder. First, they stop at the diner where Ralph Henshaw refuses to serve Mr. Tibbs. From there, on their way to the murder site, Woods deliberately changes his route. Chief Gillespie and Tibbs both notice. Chief Gillespie starts suspecting Officer Woods of the crime. That's when Lloyd Purdy bursts in to file charges against Officer Wood for getting his 16-year-old sister Dolores pregnant. You remember Dolores, the floozy from earlier. Lloyd is mad that Gillespie didn't make Tibbs leave the room during his sister's confession, so he gets a mob together to track him down. Tibbs discovers that Mr. Corbett was killed a lot earlier than originally thought. This new information completely clears Officer Woods of the murder charge. He tracks down the original murder site and finds the murder weapon. Suddenly, Virgil Tibbs had it all figured out. Acting on a hunch, Tibbs tracks down a backroom abortionist who tells him that someone is paid for Dolores to have an abortion. Suddenly, Dolores shows up. Tibbs tries to chase her down, but then is confronted by the real murderer, Ralph Henshaw, the diner guy. That's when Lloyd Purdy's angry mob shows up to lynch Mr. Tibbs. Luckily, he is able to convince Lloyd that it's actually Ralph Henshaw who knocked up his sister and not Officer Wood. Ralph shoots Lloyd dead before he can attack. Ralph is immediately arrested. Later, he confesses that he tried to rob Mr. Corbett in order to pay for the abortion and accidentally killed him in the process. Now that the case is solved, Virgil Tibbs finally gets on the train and goes home. Both Virgil and Chief Gillespie now share a mutual respect for one another. The end.